I was 23 when it happened. I had just graduated from college and decided to take a solo road trip across the country before starting my first real job. It was supposed to be an adventure, a chance to explore small towns, open roads, and find myself, or whatever people like to say. But instead, it turned into something I still can't explain. Something that still makes my skin crawl when I think about it. It was late September, and I was driving through rural Kansas. The highways stretched endlessly, flanked by fields of tall grass that seemed to go on forever. The radio stations kept cutting out, so I was stuck with static and the occasional old CD I'd thrown into the car months earlier. It was the kind of isolation that felt freeing at first, but by the time the sun started setting, it felt oppressive. I had planned to reach a larger town by nightfall, but I underestimated how long the drive would take. The horizon turned a deep orange, then faded to gray, and I realized I was nowhere near my destination. I started looking for a place to stay. This was before smartphones and easy access to reviews, so I relied on road signs and instinct. I passed a couple of farmhouses, their windows dark and uninviting, before spotting a flickering neon sign in the distance. Motel. The building was set back from the road, its worn-out parking lot covered in cracks and weeds. A single light bulb buzzed over the office door, casting a faint yellow glow. There was only one other car in the lot, an old pickup truck with rust along the sides. Something about the place felt forgotten, like it had been frozen in time. Inside the office, the air was heavy with the smell of stale cigarettes and something faintly metallic. An older man sat behind the counter, wearing a flannel shirt and a baseball cap. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Need a room?" he asked, his voice gravelly and flat. "Yeah, just for the night," I replied. The man didn't ask for ID or even my name. He slid a key across the counter with a tag that read, "Room 6. "End of the lot," he said. Something about him felt off. He barely moved, his eyes fixed on a small TV set behind the counter playing static. I forced myself to shrug it off, figuring he was just some guy running a rundown motel. Still, my nerves were on edge as I walked to my room. The room was exactly what I expected. Dim, musty, and bare. The carpet was stained, the wallpaper was peeling, and the bedspread looked like it hadn't been washed in years. I bolted the door behind me and slid the chain lock into place, letting out a shaky breath. As I looked around, I noticed something that made my stomach drop. There was a door on the far wall, painted the same beige as the rest of the room. At first, I thought it was a closet, but when I opened it, I realized it was an adjoining door to the next room. It was locked on my side, but the sight of it made me uneasy. I tried the handle just to be sure, then shoved the dresser in front of it. After that, I told myself to relax. It was just one night. I unpacked a few things, turned on the TV, and tried to drown out the creeping unease with an old sitcom. But no matter how much I tried, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I turned off the lights and climbed into bed, staring at the ceiling. The silence was almost too loud, broken only by the faint hum of the motel's flickering neon sign outside. Eventually, I must have fallen asleep, because the next thing I remember is waking up to a sound. It was faint at first, just a soft tapping, like someone knocking gently on the adjoining door. Tap, tap, tap. I froze. My first thought was that it was the guest in the next room. Maybe they needed something, but why would they knock so late? It was well past midnight. I waited, holding my breath, hoping they'd go away. But the tapping continued, steady and deliberate. Tap, tap, tap. My heart started pounding. I whispered, "Hello?" But my voice was barely audible. The tapping stopped. For a moment, I thought they'd heard me. But then, I heard something that made my skin crawl. The the sound of the lock on the adjoining door jiggling. I bolted upright, heart racing. Whoever was on the other side was trying to open it. I grabbed my phone, hoping to call for help, but there was no signal. Of course there wasn't. My fingers fumbled with the flashlight app, and I aimed the light at the door. The lock rattled again, harder this time, as if they were testing the strength of it. I pushed the dresser harder against the door, my breath coming in short, panicked bursts. Then the sound changed. Whispers. At first they were faint, like a breeze slipping through the cracks. But then they grew louder. "Let me in." The words were muffled but clear. "Let me in," the voice repeated, slow and deliberate. I stood there, frozen, unable to move. The voice didn't sound angry. It sounded calm, almost amused. That made it worse. After what felt like hours, the whispers stopped. I waited, gripping my phone like a lifeline, every muscle in my body tense. But whoever, or whatever, was on the other side didn't try the lock again. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the rustle of the wind, set my nerves on edge. When the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, I grabbed my bag and bolted for the car. The parking lot was empty. The old pickup truck was gone and the office door was closed, the open sign unlit. I didn't stop to check in or say anything to the man at the desk. I just drove. A few hours later, I stopped at a diner in the next town, hoping a hot meal and some company would help settle my nerves. The waitress was friendly enough, chatting about the weather and local gossip. But when I mentioned the motel, her expression changed. "You stayed there?" she asked, her voice dropping to a whisper. I nodded, suddenly uneasy. "That place has been abandoned for years," she said. "They found the owner dead in one of the rooms. No one stayed there since." My stomach turned. I didn't tell her about the man in the office or the whispers through the door. I just nodded, paid for my coffee, and left. To this day, I don't know what happened that night. Maybe someone was squatting there, or maybe it was something worse. But every time I think about the whispers, I get the same feeling I had standing in that dark room, that someone, or something, was right on the other side of that door. I've always been cautious about traveling alone, especially at night. My parents drilled it into me growing up. Lock your doors, be aware of your surroundings, never trust strangers. But sometimes, even when you do everything right, things can still go wrong. This happened a few years ago when I was driving from Arizona to Oregon for a new job. It was a long drive, nearly 18 hours, and I decided to split it over 2 days. My plan was simple: drive all day, stop somewhere halfway, and finish the trip the next morning. The first day went smoothly enough. The highways were quiet, and the scenery was beautiful in a rugged, desolate kind of way. Vast open stretches of desert, rocky outcroppings, and a sky that seemed impossibly wide. It was peaceful, but there was something about the sheer emptiness of the landscape that made me uneasy. No cars, no people, just the occasional tumbleweed skittering across the road. By the time dusk started to fall, I was somewhere in northern Nevada, miles from any major city. My GPS had been unreliable for most of the trip, cutting out every time I hit a dead zone, which seemed to happen constantly. I was relying on road signs to figure out my next stop. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the landscape around me transformed. The warm, golden tones of daylight faded into shades of gray and black, and the towering rock formations along the highway became jagged silhouettes. Then I saw him, a man walking along the shoulder of the road. He was tall and thin, wearing dark jeans and a heavy jacket, which struck me as odd, considering how warm it still was. His head was down, and his steps were slow and deliberate. I glanced at the empty passenger seat next to me, and then quickly looked away. I don't pick up hitchhikers. It's one of my hard rules. Still, something about him stuck with me. His posture, the way he moved, it wasn't frantic, like someone desperate for help. It was calm, almost unnaturally so. I drove past him quickly, keeping my eyes on the road. When I glanced in the rearview mirror, he was still walking, his figure fading into the distance. I told myself it was nothing, probably just a stranded motorist trying to reach the next town. But my unease grew as the road stretched on, empty and silent. About 20 minutes later, I reached a small town, if you could even call it that. There was a gas station, a diner, and 2 motels, all clustered around the intersection of 2 highways. It was the kind of place people pass through, not a destination. I pulled into the gas station first. The lights were dim, and the pump was one of those ancient models without a credit card slot. I had to go inside to pay. The clerk was a man in his 50s with a weathered face and a cigarette hanging from his lips. He didn't say much, just rang me up and went back to staring at the small TV behind the counter. I filled my tank quickly, my eyes flicking to the empty highway in the distance. By the time I checked into the motel, it was nearly 9 p.m. The clerk at the front desk barely looked at me as he handed over the key to room 8. My room was at the far end of the lot, next to a buzzing street lamp that cast uneven light over the parking spaces. Inside, the room was basic but clean enough. I locked the door behind me, checked the windows, and tried to relax. After a quick shower, I turned on the TV to drown out the silence, but the unease lingered. A few hours later, I realized I was hungry. The diner I'd seen down the road was still open, so I decided to walk over. It was only about 5 minutes away, and the night air was cool and refreshing. As I left the motel, I noticed how quiet it was. The parking lot was empty except for my car and an old pickup truck near the office. The highway beyond the motel was dark, stretching endlessly in both directions. The diner was quiet too. I was the only customer, and the waitress looked surprised to see me. She was friendly though, and we chatted briefly as she took my order. I asked her if the town was always this empty. "Pretty much," she said with a shrug. "Not many people stop here unless they have to." I ate quickly, paid my bill, and started back to the motel. The road was deserted, and the streetlights were spaced so far apart that most of the walk was in near darkness. That's when I heard it. Footsteps. They were slow and steady, matching my pace exactly. I froze. The steps stopped. I turned around, my heart pounding, but the road behind me was empty. No cars, no people, just darkness. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was tired and jumpy from the long drive. But as I started walking again, the footsteps resumed. This time I didn't stop. I quickened my pace, my eyes fixed on the faint glow of the motel's neon sign in the distance. By the time I reached my room, my hands were shaking so badly that I could barely get the key into the lock. Once inside, I locked the door and slid the chain into place. My heart was racing, and my breathing was shallow. I peeked through the curtains, scanning the parking lot. That's when I saw him. The man from the road. He was standing at the edge of the lot, just beyond the glow of the street lamp. His face was in shadow, but I knew it was him. I backed away from the window, my chest tight with panic. He hadn't done anything, not yet. But the way he stood there, so still, so patient, made my skin crawl. I debated calling the police, but what would I even say? That someone was standing in a parking lot? It wasn't exactly illegal. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that he was waiting for something. I didn't sleep that night. Every sound, the creak of the floor, the rustle of the wind, set my nerves on edge. Every so often I'd peek through the curtains, and he'd still be there, always in the same spot, always watching. When the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, he was gone. I left the motel as soon as the sun was up, not even bothering to check out. The highway felt like a lifeline as I sped away, my eyes flicking to the rearview mirror every few seconds. A few hours later, I stopped at a gas station in a larger town and asked the attendant if he'd ever heard of someone following travelers in the area. He paused for a moment, then said, "You're not the first person to ask that." I didn't ask any more questions. To this day, I don't know who that man was or why he followed me. Maybe he was just passing through like I was, or maybe he had other plans. Either way, I've never driven through that stretch of road again, and I never will. I've always enjoyed hiking. There's something calming about being in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but trees and the sound of your own footsteps. It's one of the few things in life that helps me clear my head. But after what happened last fall, I haven't been able to set foot on a trail. It was early October, the peak of the season for colorful leaves and cool weather. I had planned a solo hiking trip through a state park I'd never visited before. The park was known for its dense forests and challenging trails, and I was excited to get off the grid for a weekend. I'd done plenty of solo hikes before, and I wasn't worried. The trail I chose was a loop, about 12 miles total. My plan was to hike most of it on the first day, camp overnight at one of the designated sites, and finish the loop the next morning. I arrived at the trailhead around 9 a.m., parked my car, and shouldered my pack. The first few miles were perfect. The trail wound through a dense forest, the trees glowing in shades of red, orange, and yellow. The air was crisp, and the only sounds were the crunch of leaves under my boots and the occasional rustle of animals in the underbrush. I passed a few other hikers early on, exchanging the usual polite nods and greetings. But after about 5 miles, the trail split, and I took the less traveled path that veered deeper into the woods. From that point on, I didn't see another soul. By mid-afternoon, the trail started to feel different. The trees grew taller, their branches arching overhead and blocking out much of the sunlight. The air was cooler here, and the undergrowth was thicker. The cheerful sounds of birds and squirrels were gone, replaced by an eerie stillness. I told myself it was just my imagination, that I was reading too much into the change in scenery. But as the trail twisted and turned, I started to notice things that didn't feel right. A pair of muddy boot prints on the trail, heading in the same direction as me. They were fresh, too fresh. I hadn't seen anyone in hours, and these weren't there when I started. A tree with deep gouges in the bark, like someone had dragged a knife across it. And then there was the cabin. I wasn't expecting to see any structures out here. The map I'd brought showed nothing but forest for miles. Yet as I rounded a bend in the trail, there it was. A small wooden cabin tucked into a clearing. It was old. The kind of old that made you wonder how it was still standing. The roof sagged and the windows were caked with grime. A single wooden chair sat on the front porch, its seat cracked and splintered. I stopped in my tracks, staring at the cabin. Something about it felt wrong. It wasn't just the way it looked. It was the fact that it was here at all. This part of the park was supposed to be untouched wilderness. Who would build a cabin out here? Curiosity got the better of me. I stepped off the trail, my boots crunching over the leaves as I approached the cabin. The closer I got, the more I could feel the weight of the silence around me. It wasn't the peaceful kind of silence you find in nature. It was heavy, oppressive, like the forest was holding its breath. I climbed the steps to the porch, the wood creaking under my weight. The door was slightly ajar, and I hesitated, my hand hovering over the handle. I wasn't sure what I expected to find. Maybe some old furniture, a few rusted tools. But I had a sinking feeling that whatever was inside wasn't something I wanted to see. I gave the door a gentle push. It swung open with a low groan. revealing the dark interior. The first thing that hit me was the smell, a mix of damp wood, mildew, and something faintly metallic. The cabin was one room, bare except for a rickety table and a chair. The walls were lined with shelves holding jars of something. I stepped closer, squinting in the dim light. The jars were filled with murky liquid, and inside each one was what looked like bones. Small ones, maybe from animals. I felt a chill run down my spine. Whoever had lived here wasn't just some hermit looking for solitude. That's when I heard it, a sound from outside, a branch snapping. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. Someone, or something, was out there. I stepped back from the door, my heart pounding, and peered through the grimy window. At first, I didn't see anything, just the trees and the trail winding back into the forest. But then I spotted it. Movement. A figure, half hidden behind the trees, standing perfectly still. I couldn't make out any details, but it was definitely a person. I backed away from the window, trying to keep calm. Maybe it was another hiker. Maybe they were just curious about the cabin, like I was. But deep down, I knew better. The figure didn't move. They just stood there, watching. I grabbed my pack and slipped out the back door of the cabin, moving as quietly as I could. My mind was racing. Who were they? Why were they just standing there? And why didn't they call out or try to make themselves known? I made my way back to the trail, my eyes darting around the forest. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves made my heart race. I kept walking, faster and faster, until I was practically jogging, and then I saw them again. This time, they were on the trail ahead of me. The same figure, standing perfectly still, their face obscured by the shadows of the trees. I didn't wait to find out what they wanted. I turned and ran, my legs burning as I sprinted down the trail. The forest blurred around me, branches scratching at my arms and face as I tore through the undergrowth. I don't know how long I ran, but eventually I saw the trailhead in the distance. My car was still there, a beacon of safety in the endless sea of trees. I jumped into the driver's seat, locked the doors, and sped out of the parking lot without looking back. To this day, I don't know who that person was or what they wanted. I don't know why they were out there, or what the jars in the cabin were for, but every time I think about that hike, I can't help but feel like I was being hunted. Like whoever, or whatever, was out there wasn't just watching me. They were waiting.